Hello, church. How are you guys doing today? Well, it's been a good month off now. I guess it was a little bit more than a month. Um, but I really thought, hey, taking the last month off of the summer would be a really good idea. And it was. It was refreshing to just take some time off, work on other things, plan and pray for fall events. So, yeah, pray for those to go well. We're starting up a couple different events and going with those, and just wanted to grow the church, um, love on the community that we're a part of, reach out and just seek the Lord's will and way. Well, before we get into the statement on the social justice and the gospel as we've been going through, and it was good to take a break from that and kind of just refresh and study on different things and take some time. And I guess so it'll be 3 weeks because this video will drop on September the 3rd. Right now it is the week after just a lot of the fall of Afghanistan, the fall of Kabul, and or Kabul, however you say that. We have witnessed a lot at the end of August, and as we turn the page in in the calendar, so to say, and we get ready for fall and we get ready for fall events. It's we look at world events, and we I spoke this last Sunday on the fact that we've seen three worldviews really in in their entirety, pretty much on the TV. We've seen the failure of secular humanism, and what secular humanism pretty much says is kind of like the train. I think I can. I think I can. It's all about willpower. It's all about putting your best effort forward. And looking back, because I remember when we went into Afghanistan in October of 2001. Military forces entered Afghanistan. We started bombing Afghanistan. I was in high school at the time, and it was hard. I saw a lot of friends and other people that I knew go off into those conflicts. Sadly, actually, one of the first Marines killed in Iraq was actually from my hometown, and it's just it's a lot to watch these policymakers and everything sacrifice people, and sometimes the question is for what, right? Well, this worldview believes that we can build nations, we can build you hear that nation building, or planting democracy there. That was a big thing for Bush. And now it's we're ending these endless wars, and now Afghanistan would have been the 20-year war coming here in October. It would have lasted longer than it did last longer than the Vietnam conflict. But when you see things not end well, it is horrid. Because you think of the people that have lost, you feel for veterans that have fought there, you feel for people that are losing their freedom. It's just heartbreaking to hear of things going on there. We can just see it all unraveling, and I really looked at that, and I was like, well, the worldview of secular humanism is just on display, that we cannot will ourselves into something. We cannot educate it out. We cannot, sin is there, right? It is something that is, there. We can't get it out. So something else has to be applied. And then we saw another worldview. We saw the horrors of radical Islam, of the Islamic worldview come into its full entirety. It made me really think about this book. This book it's called Inside the Revolution. It's by Joel Rosenberg. I highly suggest. I know this book is from '09, so it's been a few years. He's actually, I believe, the end of September he'll be coming out with a new. This is like his last nonfiction book, so he'll be coming out with a new nonfiction book here soon on just the whole Arab and Israeli accords and everything going on there. But this book I highly suggest that if you want to read more of like, the moderates that are fighting against radical jihadists, and then of course what we come to seeing the third worldview that we saw is Christians, where they were, we will stay and we will die and we will serve and we will worship our Lord, and just the courage of the Afghan believers that we have witnessed is astounding. Because I look at, now it's like the American church. I've said this in sermons, I've said this in talks, where it's like we are pew potatoes, and now a lot of the churches are just, we're sitting in our comfort zone. We're not pushing against the secular humanism, where it's like, as I spoke and taught on, do we believe that our hope is in the resurrection and the life, or have we switched that around and said, oh, I believe in the life and then the resurrection, like I get the good life now. And it's like, wait, no, our hope and stay is in the resurrection and then the life afterwards, right? It's like, yeah, we have blessings here. God, blesses us here, and we need to use those blessings to, as we've seen the outpouring of helping the Afghan refugees, of helping over 5,000 Christians flee the country. And part of me, my heart breaks for that, because then we have an entire Islamic nation that has no Christian witness. But then another part of me says a lot of them will be slaughtered, because the country is being taken over by radical jihadists. The moderates ran. Once their military power could not fight against these hardened some of these Taliban guys have been fighting Soviets, have been fighting us for years. I don't know how old they are. Yeah, like, oh yeah, back in the 70s, like, I guess, yeah, you'd be my dad's age, so I guess. But the hardened fighters of the Taliban, there was no, the moderates could not take that on. And it's like, and then you feel for countries like Pakistan, that they still hold on. And a lot of this book goes into some of the history of that battle, of how they read their book, how they state this, and how radical jihadism says radical jihad states this. And so if you want to, I think I was going to label this like understanding your enemy, or understanding the world. What is going on? How can we understand Afghanistan? Especially when you look at Afghanistan and Iran, it's like, these places are like, well, you look at Hamas, and you understand that the Taliban, that the I totally forget, the Shia, right? Ayatollah. Hey, it was on the back of the book. The Ayatollahs in Iran, and then Hamas. How do we understand their worldview and how they view things? Will really help us. Well, it's like, do we really believe what we believe is really real? Do we line up with that reality of like that we believe that the resurrection and the life afterwards is more worth than this life here? Where do we store up our treasures? Is the other question. Now, if you don't want to read, this book is huge. If you don't want to read this, there's actually a really good article that Joel Rosenberg just wrote, and I've written my notes to have a link for this book. Maybe it's a little bit, it's an older book, so it probably won't be that expensive on Amazon or Christian books, where Ol Arab News. I think it is. I'll share that link as well to that article that he actually pretty much summarizes what he is talking about in this book. So it's a good synopsis on what is going on. Well, what do we do as Christians? Whether we're fighting against the secular humanism that is kind of being injected into us. As I talked on Sunday, how kind of we are bathed in it, like secular humanism and this thought process of like us doing things. I mean, it's from self-help, Dr. Phil, Oprah, our government, everything. Even what we're talking about in the social justice arena brings us into this of like what we can do, how we can change everything. And it's like, and going through that statement has been really good because it's understanding that it's like, wait, we can't transform ourselves. We can't do that. Only Jesus can. And really coming to the point of like understanding what we should do, whether we're living in a secular humanist environment of like wanting to fight against that and rage against what we're told to mold into, to even the Afghan believer that's running away from the Taliban, that's really trying to decide what do we do, and it's like how do we fight that? Well, I thought about Romans 12, 1 and 2. So let's read that. I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. So that's our appeal to, by the mercies of God, because you have been given so much, you have been blessed in Jesus Christ, that we are to present our bodies as a living sacrifice, right? Sacrifices are usually dead, right? You go back and read Leviticus, it's all about this blood covering our sin and how much of that we need to come before an almighty holy Lord. But this living sacrifice, that this is holy and acceptable to God, this is our spiritual worship. As Christ believers, we can do these things because of what God has done. And then it says this in verse 2. It says, do not be conformed to this world, right? Don't be pressed in. Think of a mold. Don't be molded by the world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Transformation comes from the renewal of one's mind. Now, does that mean, hey, read all the books behind me, right? Well, maybe these ones right here, these Bibles. Read the Bible. The renewing of one's mind is that in the knowledge of God, in the knowledge of who He is and what God has done and how He has made us a new creation, in that knowledge we can be transformed because His word is piercing. His word is sharper than anything we know of. It is the best tool around because it can renew our mind. And then it goes on, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. That through this life we can know, we can go on testing, and we can know and discern the will of God. We can know what is good and acceptable and perfect in His sight, not in our own. Right? The more and more I see things, the more and more I look at this world as like we are broken sinners. This world is broken. Those two worldviews, secular humanism and Islam, talk about something that is unobtainable. Yet this courage that we saw of I will stay and I will do this comes from the worldview of it is finished. We can be renewed. We can have this life of living sacrifice. We can serve God today because of what He has done upon the cross. And how amazing is that? I hope and pray you have a grand week. I hope and pray that the Lord strengthens you and blesses you and encourages you. I'll put those links in the description as well, so you can further your study on those if you if you so desire. Thank you, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.